Hey, I'm Relax, and this week, a couple weeks ago, I did ask you guys what decks you wanted me to record with, and I do have a backlog of those. Specifically, I think I'm gonna queue up Turbo Mill for next week in Modern, because the deck actually sounds like a blast to play. Mostly these were decks from a Chapin article about 2 weeks ago, listing some of the new players from Magic Origins in Modern. And that deck specifically struck me as interesting because, especially in the wake of the World Championships, Crypt Incursion is a very powerful card. But in the process of testing for Worlds, I discovered this deck. By discovered this deck, I mean I knew about it via an article that was listing the win percentages of all the decks on Magic Online, and it had the highest win percentage, I think, besides Bank Collected Company, which is a deck I don't really like. But this deck just looked great, and played some with it over my Worlds testing, and it was brutal. I didn't end up playing it because it has a few weaknesses that I think in the end it would have been like great for the metagame that showed up, but um, we can get to those a bit later. Just for now, I kind of want to explain how this deck works, what you're trying to do. So the deck is Suicide Zoo. Uh, it's very reminiscent of the same, the Suicide Black deck. This archetype of, at a specific life cost, you can get oversized creatures early. And that deck also had this Hatred kill in it. So the card Hatred, which may or may not be available for me to look at right now, is 3 black black, pay X life to cast, and then target creature gets plus X plus 0 until end of turn. So you'd have that with evasive creatures, and you just one-shot them with some Dark Rituals really early. So that was the original Suicide Zoo deck. And the archetype, with these drawback creatures kind of existed for a while until creatures just started being good and not having drawbacks anymore. But this deck, it really just is a Suicide Black deck in the modern era. Instead of your creatures costing you life, your deck is effectively costing you life to play the creatures. You will notice that the mana base is 17 lands, 0 of which do not have some effect that says pay life. No basics, none of that nonsense, just fetching untapped duels all day long. And that chains into Death Shadow. Yeah, this card's great if you are casting it as, 4/4, 5/5. And this deck gets bigger. There's some balancing hacks involving not dying to opposing lightning bolts, but you can make some crazy Death Shadows. And as you can see, the other creatures are also like the most aggressive creatures of all time. Swift Spear, Wild Nacatl, Step Links making a comeback because you are just trying to kill them as fast as possible. And really kind of what ties this whole plan together is this, modern hatred plan of Become Immense, Temur Battle Rage. You become immense your creature, you Temur Battle Rage it, they take about 1,000 and they die. Pretty straightforward. Mutagenic Growth is a poor man's Become Immense. Lightning Bolt is just a card. It's not like even that exciting in this deck. It's just like this is efficient enough to kill our opponent quickly. So there's actually like if you just draw these two cards, you're probably just going to turn 3 your opponent pretty easily, which is pretty absurd. The other thing about that is your deck is really just 48 cards. So part of this enabling, it's not just Death Shadow. So you do get to pay life to cycle and draw new cards, and you do that with Probe and Street Wraith, which I guess technically there are 5 lands that produce mana, and 2 of them produce black, and you can cast a Street Wraith. I haven't done it yet. But the idea with these cards is not just that they enable Death Shadow by letting you pay life, but that it's, both halves of your combo. So you're getting larger Death Shadows earlier, you're getting to Become Immense faster, which really gives you this sort of hyper-aggressive combo feel. These cards also trigger Monastery Swift Spear, the Prowess, and that's like one of the more important sequencing decisions with the deck, is often you'll like have a Swift Spear. So like a decision that I often would have to make is like I'd have a Swift Spear and I'd have like a Wild Nacatl, and the best way to produce damage quickly would be play the Nacatl on 1, hold my cantrips, play the Swift Spear on 2, and then go Probe, Bauble, or whatever, trigger Prowess twice, and get in the maximum amount of damage on turn 2. Let's see what else about this deck. There's a lot of fetch lands for Mishra's Bauble. You can fetch, Bauble targeting yourself if you're not going to fetch, and then fetch away the card if you don't like it. There's a lot of probe then bobbling them for absolute perfect information, which is another strength of this deck. You are a perfect information combo deck, which is always great. I have run out of basics in the or lands to basics lands to fetch in the deck before for step links, so just be careful of that. The sideboard is kind of whatever. You got your usual modern split of fair cards and unfair beat the unfair decks cards. Pyroclasm kind of mops up any random decks that are trying to race you. You'll notice a theme of a lot of things trying to beat decks that race you. Don't get raced by decks trying to race you. Originally, there were Nourishing Shoals in the sideboard to go with Hooting Mandrills and Become Immense as a way to beat Burn, but this card on Phyrexian On Life, just way more powerful. Kind of surprised I didn't think of it immediately, but then I saw it in a Yogs. I believe he's one of the players on Magic Online that's been playing this deck the most. But he had this card in the sideboard, and the reason I'm shocked I didn't think of it initially was that this was a card that Steve Rubin had found for Pro Tour Fate Reforged in the sideboard of his Become Immense Zoo deck to beat Burn. And it was just great because it usually gains you like 10 or 12 life for a single card, which is pretty unbeatable. It's just really, really absurdly good for a single card against Burn. You know, you're throwing away 2 cards and time and everything for Nourishing Shoal, and you can get Skull Cracked. This card just doesn't get Skull Cracked or Targus Commanded or anything. It just sits in play, and they have to deal you an extra 10 damage. I hate Cards for Affinity because that deck can actually just race you and pressures your life total, so it's harder for you to race back. Thoughtseize for when Lightning Bolt is bad for your interactive spell. And just some random dorks. I've kind of mixed this assortment up. You sometimes need better, bigger threats. I'm not sure which of these is the best, so I have 1/1/1 of Mandrills, Angler, Goyf. The latest Yogg list had all Mandrills, but I have a feeling that that's a mistake. I can't like once you cut Nourishing Shoal, I can't imagine Hooting Mandrills is better than even Tasigur. I'm trying just Angler because I think Angler might even be better than that, especially if we're giving it double strike trample. You know what? I don't want to play Goyf. My issue with Goyf is that there's anti-synergy between boarding in 2 Delve cards and leaving him Become Immense. So we're gonna cut Tarmogoyf today. I kind of wanted it because I had seen an opposing list that had it, and it seemed pretty good. But at the same time, like, maybe you just want something in there because... So one of the issues this deck can have is opposing green creatures. Just because they're, like, big and hard to punch through. And Goyf was something that could fight on that scale. But I don't think it's the right card. So I think the swap is just going to be 1/1/1 on the Delve Dorks and see which one is the best. So yeah, this is Suicide Zoo. That's how it functions. I'm going to play some matches. Then I'll get back and kind of talk about what I think is maybe missing from this list.